outset, just keep your receipts. Send me a photo of those, or get those to me anyway. We'll reimburse you for those. Mileage as well. If they drove in, I'll talk to you about that later. Get you reimbursed for your mileage as well. Okay, thanks very much.
Great, thank you. We're in our public session and we're on item number 10, which is discussion action items. And we're on item number I, which is the review, the board responsibilities and documents. And this is the director first.
Okay. For this session, there's a number of documents under Roman numeral I that I just wanted to review. These are kind of documents, some of them you've seen before, some of them, one of them will be new, but they're kind of yearly things that we want to update. The first is a confidentiality agreement. And that one we've signed before, made a couple of fixes, just some typos, updated it, but I want to get a new signature on this. So I've got hard copies for you. Dr. Wallace will email you a copy. You can digital sign and send that to me, but we'll get these updated and on file. I meant to have these passed out, so I'll just walk down the room, make sure you get a copy. Please take some time today to read through this. You've signed it before. We're just kind of renewing it, reminders. And then make sure those get to Brooke before we wrap it up today. Certainly.
You do your, you know, you have to take those classes.
Yes.
I keep getting
Reminders.
reminders being sent, even though I've done them.
Everybody else receiving those? Raise your hand. Everybody, yeah.
Didn't take the class.
It has the first of the year. We have to take them every calendar year.
I assume that's where I'm getting them.
So that's true. What Dr. Lamb said was it resets at the calendar year. So if you've taken it since January 1, the reminders should stop. You've got until the end of the year to take the training. I've reached out to Workday to say, we don't need weekly reminders on these things. I haven't heard back if those have slowed down, but I'm working on it. Did anybody take it after? Has anyone taken a training after the first of the year and still get the reminder?
Yeah.
And just check and see that it's the training that you took that you're getting the reminder about, because I think there was one that was available.
And then you're trying to get into Workday. It's like,
What? No.
finally figured out how to do that.
I believe Mr. Wadika might have some opinions about Workday.
We're in public session, right? It's myself for now.
Okay.
I retired from the racing commission largely because of Workday. That was the last straw.
Just stay with us a few more months.
Natalie, it makes you let Workday update with Workday every 90 days because of.
My husband is on Workday too, and you should, came from the office opposite to my bedroom and here. You can hear it.
Appreciate all your patience with Workday and the training. Ignore it as best you can. I'm working with Workday to get those things done. There's two trainings, harassment and the cybersecurity that are saying. Everybody done the new board member training. Anyway, thanks for your patience. We'll continue to work on it.
Yeah, no problem.
Next item that we want to review is the handbook review. We're not going to go through this. It's very large, voluminous. It is on your iPad, and it's just the handbook for board members. If you haven't had a chance to read through it, look through it, skim through it, do so as you can. I think everyone here is pretty well experienced at this point. If you have specific questions, dive into details, board work, it's there for you. I just want to remind you, it's on your iPads and always available. And it was, it's the most updated copy. All right, political activity review. This one.
According to.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, we can do that one. Or there's delegated authority. Is there documents for that? All customer satisfaction.
in the packet to come ahead.
Oh, we got this up here. Let's go through.
Okay.
Okay, this is a reminder regarding political activity review. Seems like it's always political season, but especially a good time to be reminded of your communications. You can be politically involved. Yeah, you cannot represent the board directly. Does that summarize it, Joanna?
Yeah, I mean, you're allowed to have First Amendment rights as a board member. You just want to be careful that you say, I am not here as a board member. Right? I'm here in my own whatever other capacity.
Thank you. What's next?
But Kelly, how are you the customer sense?
Goes,
That's right.
Okay, best practices. This is the survey that you guys take every year. We'll do this again in June, I believe, with our, or we'll do it probably in August. It's supposed to be done by October, so that'll be our, but this is the survey that you go out, and this measures how we're doing as a board. And I presented this document to you last time we did this, just to kind of walk you through the questions on the left column and some additional context and information on those. So if you can scroll down, I just want to go through these so that we're looking to update how you receive this through an online survey. But the questions will all be the same. And so sometimes you'll see a question and you're not sure if we're doing those things or not. So I've given some context on the right-hand side to demonstrate where that information is or how we're meeting those requirements. So we went through this recently. I don't think we need to go through it in detail, but it's a document that's there for you for reference. Going through these pretty quick. Any questions on any of this so far? Everything so far is review. And then we'll get into some new stuff now with. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. The governor's office asked us to statewide, enterprise-wide, all agencies, boards and commissions to update their customer service policy based on certain criteria. This is what we've come up with. Take some time to read through it together because this is new. Purpose here is to establish guidelines for us to ensure timely and effective responses to customer inquiries. I know there's been times when we've received reports that we haven't responded to phone calls or emails in a timely manner. And that happens a lot with lots of different agencies. And so the governor's office heard that and said, that agency is policy to improve there. We define customer service. We identify our core customers. Then we talk about how we're going to improve. And basically what we're looking to do is respond to our phone and email inquiries within a day. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to answer the question within a day or solve the problem within a day, but we're going to try to at least get back to people, let them know we've received their call. Through email, realistically, we're going to do that through an automated email response. Just say your email's been received, make sure that they know it hasn't gone into a black hole, and then we'll strive to respond to them. To have the 1 day response. And then we'll follow up within 3 to 5 business days to actually address the issues, solve the, answer the questions, solve the problem as best. It reiterates our performance measures here. These are things we're measured on our customer service satisfaction. It's online that the public has access to. That survey is linked in our emails. It's on our website. We try to broadcast this far and wide so we get balanced participation, not just with those who are upset, who often like to fill out surveys, but also with those who received exceptional customer satisfaction and want to report that as well. And we did have an increase in that KPM, a pretty significant KPM over the last year. And so I think that reflects our attempt and dedication at responding to our licensees, the public, making sure that they're heard and that somebody's answering those calls. And so with this, I'm bringing it to the board for approval. not sure if that requires a vote. For policy. They just like to hear that the board approves of it. Sure.
It would virtually happen.
This will go on our website. It will go in the DAS resource pages. Any comments, any thoughts? Couple fixes. They wanted me to include our KPM report, which is a separate document that we review every year. They wanted me to include that with this. But other than that, basically it's good to go.
Any board members with questions? Thank you, Ingrid. I saw that.
Just not letting me fix it, but I will.
I
Is
wonder
that
if
the
it might be helpful to have something on there about differentiating cases from, like saying something like cases take a long period of time. You know what I mean? Just so there's not confusion, so that somebody doesn't skim through that website and be like, oh, within 5 days, they're gonna get back to me and tell me what my case.
That's a great suggestion. That's exactly what they would presume, right?
You know what I
In the
mean?
case
Yeah.
we wrapped up.
So just something that says, like a caveat note for, submitted cases will take a prolonged period of time to be processed, but I don't know.
That's a great.
This is where Karen.
Will you still be available to help edit
I might.
public documents? Thank you for that suggestion. It's really, it's helpful, right? People will see that. We need to be clear on investigations are a little different. Anything else? Okay, thank you. And delegated authority. We've looked at this before too, but it's been a while. This is, delegated authority. It's what the board has given staff, authority to do. It's a list that just keeps growing. It's there to be reviewed. We reviewed it in October of last year, I believe, and went through all of the authority you've delegated to staff. What we'd like to do today is look at one new piece down at the bottom. And this is a proposed new authority to immediately issue order of suspension in cases where the board received a letter of suspension from the Department of Justice for delinquent child support payments for ORS 25-750. In addition to issue an order of release and suspension with subsequent letter of release is received from the DOJ. Another case subsequent to the issuance of the order to suspend or the issuance of the order to release suspension, the order will be brought to the board its next regularly scheduled meeting for ratification. Just say for that first.
So this doesn't happen hopefully very often, but there's two scenarios in which people can get their license suspended for things outside your jurisdiction. One is failure to pay taxes. Those though, if a case comes to you for failure to pay taxes, you actually have to provide the hearing on that. Which I've done for boards before, but that doesn't get suspended immediately. These child support cases, what happens is the due process on those happens before it comes to you. And then a board just gets a letter saying this person's license has to be suspended. And it has to happen immediately. So if you don't delegate authority to your executive director, which you don't have to, it just means you'll have to have a special board meeting. If you get one of these. If you delegate the authority, it means that Pete can just do it. And it's like legally, you really don't have any choice. Like if you get one of these letters, you have to suspend the license. And then when the person gets caught up, you get a letter from saying they're good. You give them their license back.
No, I was just gonna ask the question for the language, do we need to state to the executive, to allow the executive director to, because it doesn't say exactly who that's delegated to.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay, so we could just,
For the executive director too.
okay, to,
Is that building, I'm just saying staff?
Oh, whoops.
That's up to you all. Because you can always delegate down to staff.
up above, it says the executive director and authorized staff, we could reuse that language.
Yeah, just in case, something like, because you'd have to sign it, but just in case like you're unavailable. Yeah.
My question, most boards just accept this as something to delegate to their staff? Or is it kind of 50-50? It depends on which board, or we're just above the curve.
I think this is. I've not done a full-blown survey or analysis.
Yeah.
To be honest, it seems like what I've seen in practice is it's something that happens once. They have to have a special board meeting. And then they're like, huh. I mean, luckily, you don't see these very often, which is a good thing for everyone, right? So this can be like a once every 15 years kind of event.
Any board members have any questions about the process or being asked?
We could have more special board meetings together. I want to miss that.
Would it be helpful to do a vote if we're in support of it or right now?
So what you'd be voting on is to modify it. So the delegation of authority to executive director is you as a board saying, executive director, we are giving you the power to do these things. And this would be a modification. You would want to vote on your amended delegated authority. Could you be adding this to the document that you approved of the vote?
Our delegated authority. I know we review it every year, but do we actually have something on this document that says or encourages that we review it every year or when we're reviewing it? So that when we're delegating this authority, that we're also delegating it for a time period as opposed to like this infinite number, like say, we don't have the same board staff, and somebody comes in, is it a 20-year review policy or
I mean,
does this get reviewed every year?
I mean, I think it's a good thing to review it every year,
Right.
but ultimately it's up to you about whether you would like to have it happen. And
I believe it's vaguely referred to in those best practices that you review operations, et cetera, but it's not. So if you want to codify that a little bit better, I think we certainly could.
More comfortable putting something on the document that says this gets reviewed, annually. Yeah, maybe not without a time point, but I don't know how other board members feel about that, if they feel passionately or not.
Annually just feels the way time moves now. Like a lot. I think I like the idea of reviewing, but I feel like maybe a cadence of like every 2 years.
Sure, I have no problem with
I thought he was going to go the other way. I think you're going to say more often.
that.
Keep a tighter leash on you.
It could be something that could include the executive director's report, just a standing item that's just there, so people are familiar.
Can we use the word biennial? That always confuses people if it's every 2 years or twice a year.
I always have to look at, is it biennial? Is it biannual?
Biennial, every biannual, every twice a year. I love that word.
Annually or twice?
I think the twice. I think that's 2 years. Every 2 years seems reasonable. It gives us that buffer zone that Ingrid has talked about before.
Okay, and I think that gets us through item I, Roman numeral 1.
We should just a vote on that real quick, just so that we don't. So I'll also move to approve the delegated authority with the addition of the authorization of the order of suspension language and the biannual review of the document. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Dr. Rinaldi seconds. All those in favor, Dr. Borza? Get my cheat sheet. Dr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Ms. Natalie Mayer Williamson?
Aye.
Ms. Karen Pate?
Aye.
Dr. Katie Wallace?
Aye.
Mr. Brian Wadika?
Aye.
Dr. Max Rinaldi?
Aye.
Dr. Lamb, aye. Motion passes to approve the delegated authority.
Thank you very much. I do have one more item under the first item, strategic plan. So last April, we drafted, reviewed, and approved our strategic plan. I just wanted to provide it to you. It's on your iPads for review. We haven't changed this. We haven't done anything with this. I did fix a little typo at one point. So I don't know if we need to read through this entirely. I would like to just go down and highlight our goals.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so in this, we identified our strategic goals here: engage the proficient team, effective education and outreach, operational excellence, quality service. And a lot of those are caught up in things like our policy for customer service, more efficient licensing times, um, clearing the backlog of investigations, getting these things done, align with our strategic goals. Can you go back up just a minute?
Yep. More.
Yeah. I don't have my print on this, I'm sorry. There's still room for improvement, and I think we're on that course. But I just want to kind of revisit these things and talk about it with. And below this, we have our strategic strategies here. Have a question? Yeah.
Scroll back up, I think, it looks like it's out of alignment with what we just talked about. The, committed to return calls and emails within 48 hours.
That's good. Good catch. 48 hours was our target, and the governor said we should have a better target. So that needs to be updated. Thank you for catching. Yeah, that goal is now within 24 hours.
I think you had strategies and sit out in that big headline. Strategies, that should be an E.
Indeed. Thank you for that. We do proofread these things, just not very.
It's easy to miss those things.
Um, So, just gonna looking through these, if anybody has any questions or anything you want to touch on, let me know. One of the things, the goal of education and outreach and the strategic priority community partnerships is something I'm hoping to focus on this next year. As we said earlier, we've done a good job of getting our operations up and running, getting more efficient. Now it's time, as inspections go farther afield, to get out and start meeting people where they are in the field. Continue to work with our valued associations and partners. Then this has our organizational chart. We're already into that.
That's the end of that.
So you've got that on your document. You can take a look through it more carefully, more detail if you like. If you have any issues, questions, or typos or anything else on this, please let me know. Any questions on that? Thanks for putting the work together to put it together last year. It's nice to review it. Make sure we're still on the right track. And I believe that concludes discussion action item 1 and everything we need to review.
Great. Are we ready to move to 10 little I, the CBT work group update, which is again your section?
Yes. This is a verbal update again. The CBT work group has met. We're going to be meeting again on the 23rd of April. We started to take a look at some draft rule language, trying to look at California rules, seeing what California has implemented that we might be able to utilize. That's really where we're at. I know after April, I'll have more to share. They're hoping to have some product available to you for our June.
So why California? Why are we wanting to implement what California does?
Well, maybe not implement everything, but we're looking at their rule language. The work group feels there might be some useful changes there.
Because they're utilizing CBTs a little bit better. than we are from what on their rules and regulations. Sort of expand our CT usage.
Right.
And those are public meetings, if anybody in the public wants to participate in those or observe those. If you have any information that you'd like added or shared with that work group, you can send that to me. Natalie Mary Williams is chair of that work group. I didn't want to give her an opportunity to present anything else that you might really need to be shared, but we're really in the process at this stage. And I know by June we'll have more specific information to share. Anything else you did?
It's just a great group of people that just collaborate really well. And even though I'm chair, I'm not really knowing what I'm doing because it's the first time for me, but I'm learning. And we've gotten quite far with what we've done so far. We've only met a couple times, so. And that's all I have to say.
Those public meetings, work groups, are those on the website?
They're posted on the website, usually a week or at least a couple days before, depending on what the requirement is for that. But it's posted with a link on our website.
We shared the information that was shared at a previous board meeting regarding from ABSB with the CBT, what Beth Bennett talked about with their survey through AABSB and CT.
I believe we did.
I think we recorded that too. Okay, I just didn't know if all of your members that are on that committee had access to that video or had been exposed to that information. Because that seemed to be very helpful information.
I believe it was provided in their documents, but I don't think we reviewed it as a group. And so that's a great reminder just to make sure first that they have it and then that they reviewed it adequately. And it is a great
Agglomeration of national
mile high.
people who
Yeah.
CBT, scope of practice. That's where the language I was looking for, scope of practice.
Thank you for that. Any other questions on that? If you have questions throughout after this that you think of or things you'd like the work group to consider, please just send it my way and I'll make sure they get it. Thank you.
Great, we'll move on to item 10, three little I's, and revisit the rule change for OAR 875-010-0031. And this was talking about facilities and locations, and this is with Inspector 9.
Yes, I'm going to cover agenda item 3, 4, and 5 all in one go because there's a single document for that, which is the filing that you see there in your on your iPad. All three of these were rule changes that were voted through at the previous board meeting back in February, and then they went to public rulemaking on March 21st. At that time, we did not have any public comments. I have not received any written communication about these. So now it is up to the board to decide whether or not to move forward with making these rule changes permanent. I'll go ahead and summarize them for you really quickly. First of all, we changed in a single location, we changed the word facilities to locations, just to make it clear that we, in that specific context, we are not talking about facilities as we define them in Veterinary Practice Act, like a registered facility. It's actually a location that where care is being provided to privately owned animals. So we just wanted to make sure that that wasn't causing any confusion. We also made changes to the requirements for facilities to notify the board when they are closing and to properly dispose of their records in a way that they're made available to patients, to clients. So patient records are made available to either a client or they can be provided to another veterinarian or they could be or otherwise. I think we included language that said otherwise. Let's see. So sorry. Okay, here we go. So notifying clients and the board, making arrangements for patient records to be available for 3 years after clinic closure date. Patient records can be released directly to clients, transferred to the custody of another veterinary facility, or stored appropriately and released promptly upon receiving client request. And then we made the managing veterinarian responsible for enforcing all of that. The last item that is in here is defining the terms pregnancy evaluation, fertility evaluation, and sterility evaluation. These are, as a reminder, these are terms that appear in statute, and the board chose to provide these definitions that you can see here. So at this time, I think we open it for discussion and then.
Inspector Nye. So we have 3 rules on the table that Inspector Nye has gone over, and they've already gone out for public comment. We've received no public comment. And at this point in time, we have the ability to discuss them more or move to approve the changes that have gone out for public comments. And then those rules will take effect in what's the duration of time?
Immediately.
Immediately. So, any board members with comments or questions about language?
And Dr. Lim, I'm sorry, I should have said, it would be immediately unless the board wanted to include language that says effective July 1st or something like that.
It could be immediately.
It could be immediately, right?
Thank you for that clarification.
About the bill discussed this morning about pregnancy diagnosis, like, are we gonna run into a situation where definitions that we're making here could make this, what was it, Senate Bill 926, where pregnancy diagnosis by non-veterinarians it's for cattle, right? Or cattle.
Yeah, well, I don't think that will, Joanna, I don't think that will affect your definition. These are just definitions. But depending on what happens with that bill, you may have to,
Okay,
yeah. For now.
knowing that.
Good question. Any other questions? Anybody want to review anything? You need Ingrid to move up or down. It's also on your iPads. So Ingrid, I'm just gonna make sure that I have the 3 rules. So that if we do a motion now, are they in 3, 4, and 5? Are those?
Yes, I.
Page 61.
We actually have all 3 of them on the same page.
Oh, what page number should you want? It was like on the
It's, yeah, it's at the beginning of the filing.
Exactly. second page, was like the second page of the tab.
It's these ones here.
Perfect. And that captures. Does that capture 875-011-0010?
Oh, it does.
So I also move to approve the rules as proposed and sent out for public comment in 875-005-0005, 875-010-0031, and 875-011-0010. Do I have a second? Ms. Mayor Williamson seconds. All those in favor, Dr. Borzek? Aye. Dr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Ms. Mayor Williamson?
Aye.
Ms. Tate?
Aye.
Dr. Wallace?
Aye.
Mr. Wadika?
Aye.
Dr. Rinaldi?
Aye.
Dr. Lamb? Aye. Motion passes to approve the 3 rules. Does that conclude what you needed for your?
It does for that piece of it. Now we will, I'm sorry. Okay, so we'll move on to a new rule change. Director Burns referred to this earlier. We have received approval.
Ingrid, can I interrupt you for just, a second, just so the board members know, we're jumping down to 10:6, the new rule change. The agenda, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you, sorry about that.
Yep, no problem. So the legislature has approved a 50% increase in our fees. And so we have provided for the board, and sorry, that that's going to go into effect on July 1st. So functionally, this at this board meeting, we would need to adopt the rules and then send them for public comment in between this meeting and our next meeting, which is in June. At which point the plan would be to then vote those into permanent status. So to that end, we have provided for you this document just kind of summarizes what the current fees are and how much they will be increasing. And then also we have come up with some proposed language for how that could be. I included two different options for the board to consider here. One is actually going through and finding the fees are kind of scattered throughout the Veterinary Practice Act. It was kind of hard to hunt them down, but we could definitely do it that way. And then, so that's kind of option one, where you see that, you know, this fee has been changed. So that has a strike through. That's an error on my part. I apologize. But that's one way of doing this. We also have included in this some removal of language that refers to annual and other similar type language to allow for the board to in the future consider going to a biennial fee renewal schedule, which is something that isn't happening yet. But if we build kind of the room in the language now as we're editing the fees, it would be easier to implement it in the future. Also, so that's one option to do that. And then also with it's probably a good idea to include that fees are not prorated in this, if we are going to that sort of model in the future. So you'll see lots of that. The other option is to create, and I've seen that other boards have done this type of style. And I'm sorry, I'm scrolling to option B. Many rules. Option B would be to create a new rule within definitions that migrates all of the fees into a single area so that it's easier to evaluate what the fees are. Brooke can probably comment on there being some confusion sometimes with new licensees, especially about what exactly fees they are responsible for paying when they're applying for a new license. And again, if fees were adjusted in the future, it would make it much easier for somebody to find all of the fees and adjust them appropriately. So that's another option. To do it that way. And then you can include this sort of language that then applies to all fees so that they must be paid at time of application or renewal, that they are not refundable or transferable, and then they're not prorated. And then item 5 is included with some other boards where it just says that monies under $5 will not be refunded unless it's requested in writing within a year of payment.
I think this system is a lot easier for
Okay.
people to navigate.
So then what happens, and hopefully people had time to review this, is that then those fees are just struck from here entirely and migrated. So that's the difference between those two options.
The language would remain the same, it would just be the fee strike.
Exactly. Oh, well, the language would still be changed in the ways I talked about earlier in terms of like allowing to go to biennial. So those changes are the same across option A and option B, but the difference is that the fees are struck instead of amended.
Any other board members with questions, comments, concerns? Brooke, would you like to add anything about what works or doesn't work?
I think it's really this, I think there are a lot of questions. It's not clear. Takes people a lot of digging. I think that's helpful.
I'd like to draw your attention to how many 50-cent allotments there are. Increase fees by 50%, you never left 50 cents.
Just round it up.
Well, we've received permission to increase fees up to 50%. So I think we might be able to round it down. We might have a hard time rounding it up. So, I've not done an exact, revenue account for what that would cost us, but, I could easily do that, with shared financial services. To see what that might cost us in revenue, but 50% was more than enough, growth, projection for us. So if the board did want to, round those down, I'm confident it would still be structured. But I could do an analysis on that and get the information to you too. Could probably do it by tomorrow.
What's the downside to just having 50 cents?
Nothing, other than, round numbers, people might send in wrong checks. Not a big deal, but, more and more our payments are getting more automated, so it really was better there, so.
How many payments come in as cash or check?
Majority are done through credit card, I think.
So.
Cash is an option.
Yeah. Never had cash.
Yeah.
I probably had one cash payment in 13 years.
I think I've only had one since.
So,
I'm gonna send one. So
Next year, you're gonna get all the board. Right. For fun. Thanks. Pennies, dimes.
50 cents aren't an issue, it's not an issue, it's. And it's kind of jumps out at me.
And I,
Go ahead.
I agree, it's funny, but then I was like, well, most people I pay with a card and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Anyways, you guys don't have to make change, like,
All right.
but I don't, what do other people think? I don't think it matters. I think they pay with a credit card. Next year.
It's gonna be, or the next time you do a fee increase, it's gonna be like 52% just to take care of
I
that.
will ask you that, always have to ask in a percentage, like you
No.
can't say. Oh, okay,
It's
it's
just,
just,
as we were analyzing it, we're trying to find that balance between the right amount of money. If you, up to 50% is determined ideal. So we landed there.
just have to remember that we have to ask for like a very specific.
Well, next time it'll be 50%, and then the time after that,
Right,
it'll be
exactly,
52,
so you gotta
right?
get to even number at some point.
All right, any other questions about this rule? If not, we can do a motion to. Are there feelings, I can go around the room and see too, are most people liking this option? It sounded like so, but if other people like the other option, we can discuss that one as well. Like we have more interested in this option. Anybody vehemently against this option? On the board right now, which, Dr. Wallace, you can see what's up there, right? On your screen.
Yeah, I like simplification. I'm good with it.
Okay. All right, so,
I'm realizing that I need to get you the list of all the rolled numbers that are changing. So could we pause for a second on that and I'll come up with the list and then give it back to you?
yeah, or do you want to just add that to the, like, we could vote on it tomorrow when we're right before all of the motions for the cases, does that work? And then you have time to get those. And
Yeah, and I think we'll have to have a rule, or sorry, we'll have to have the motion be to adopt a new rule and then amend the following rule. Is that?
Well, for these, it will be to move these into public rulemaking.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
yes, and then amend language in the other rules to reflect the new rule. Is that how it would?
Well, so these are all like, you're not adopting these, you're moving them into the public rulemaking process.
Right.
And then at the future meeting, you'll decide if you're adopting.
Great,
Yeah.
sorry, yes. But we'll still have to include language to amend the other rules that
Yes.
can go into public.
Yeah.
Okay, rulemaking. Okay. That sounds great. Inspector Nye, was there anything else with regard to that you needed to address?
I believe that that is it for those. And I think then my last item is just the rulemaking status update, a lot of which we have covered already, but I will just run through the things that we have not. We are going to have a BCPR work group, BCPR work session, I believe, during this meeting, so I won't get too deep in that, but that obviously remains in process. The late fees is on hold. We did have the legislature approve this fee increase, so I imagine that we'll probably leave that on hold for a while longer, since we do have the fee increase coming through. Obviously, the board has the public rulemaking has concluded, and we've moved forward these rules to become permanent. Let's see here. Same thing with the renewal fees, where we had, we wanted to change it to make it consistent. That also remains on hold. Those fees are increasing. So I don't see that we'll take any action on that anytime soon, or I don't plan to, but we'll leave it on there so we can keep an eye on it. And then that one to become. You did. Okay, so that was included in the filing as well.
This is the one,
This is the one.
this is the one I sent you an email yesterday.
Okay.
Sorry about that. There's some discussion on this one. Dr. Lam, you're familiar with this? Did you want to?
Yes, so I just had a quick question. I think we reviewed this one, and remind me if I'm incorrect in my recollection of this. I think we did fix the discrepancy between the two rules about the lapse period. I think that actually did get corrected, but there was still housekeeping language. I believe DVM was struck from the rule, and it said licensed veterinarian because there's different initials if people are graduating from different schools. So I think that was struck from the language. So I think it might, I don't know where it is in process, but I didn't know if that was a little bit confusing.
I will look into it.
We'll look into this one and make sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
We're looking at the last order. Just give us some time on this one. If we can't have it by later today or tomorrow, we'll look at it in June.
Great. Yes, people then number 10. CII with regard to OAR 875-040-0010 to come back.
And then equine dentistry and animal massage, there's nothing new to report there. We do have kind of another agenda item about allied health practitioners, which we'll touch on some of this later in the meeting. So that's all I have to report there.
Great, thank you, Inspector Nye. We'll move on to item 10.8, which is what Inspector Nye was just touching on, the issue with the allied health profession language, possible conflict between ORS 686.040.4. And this is with Director Burns.
Thank you very much. And with the rule part of this, the potential conflict, Inspector Nye is a little more familiar, so I'm going to ask her to address that.
Yeah, so essentially the issue here is that the board has long had kind of like a statement about allied health practitioners. I think it was originally specific to massage therapy, and then it was widened out to include other allied health practitioners that allowed for individuals who had certifications through the board of massage therapists, board of dentistry to practice their healthcare profession on animals, and I believe with or without a referral from a veterinarian. The issue that we're running into is that several of the practice acts for these other professions restrict the practice of that healthcare profession to humans. So we're referring this issue to the board because of a concern about, is the board advising people to do something that would be a violation of what their own board would tell them they could do? So we are looking for the board's input there.
Just for a point of clarification, I think our messaging has gone out that they have to have a referral with a veterinarian, just for clarification.
I believe, yes, I think
That's
that's correct.
I do have words there. So this is not that the board is saying, so this is an exception to getting a license to practice veterinary medicine. So it's not like the board is saying, you go ahead and do this.
Okay.
What the board is saying is, there's a statute that says we can't go after you for unlicensed veterinary practice if you fit within this exemption.
Okay.
And then I actually think, might want legal advice, because I actually think pretty much every allied health professional's scope of practice is human.
A lot of them are. The
Yeah.
one that I noticed that I noticed, I didn't go through all of them, but I know physical therapy doesn't actually say human. But a lot of the others
So
do.
there's some questions
Yeah.
here, including, I also wouldn't want to phrase it as if the board is telling, that the board is saying it's over. So there's a difference between a scope of practice, let's say chiropractic. For them, they're licensed to practice on humans, and them being able to not get in trouble with this board when they're practicing on animals. So I just.
Yes, yeah.
And I think we have the language that we've adopted, because I thought it did say, as long as it's in agreement with the scope of practice of their license.
Of course, right? I mean, if one of those boards had a statute that said you are forbidden from practicing on animals,
Right.
of course, that would.
I feel like we have that.
I don't think those boards say that anywhere. I don't think these boards say you may not practice on animals. Their scope of practice, their license might be humans. You know,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like where I'm finding it is that it's defined in statute as like the practice of dentistry within the human oral cavity.
yes, right. No,
Right,
exactly.
yeah.
Their scope of practice that they're licensed to do is humans. But that's a different issue from them having a statute that says you are forbidden from practicing on.
Right, right,
Right.
right.
Right, and then I guess right at the bottom there where it says, as long as the practice is in confirmation with the laws and rules governing the practitioner's practice. So like, I read that, and I may be overreading that, as they have their own responsibility to their own board. Yes, at that point, and maybe that's not as clear in this,
That's kind of where I was getting hung up as well.
and that's where you're getting.
Yeah, because if the rule, if the law, if the statute would say that it has to be humans, then that's why we're bringing it to the board. I don't feel qualified to answer these
But
questions.
that's a different question.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, not that we'd like legal advice, I think budget wise, you might want to put that off.
Your burdens.
Thank you, and I appreciate you walking us through that, Ingrid. It's very complicated. It's very confusing for licensees, unlicensed people. We're getting a lot of calls. At AVSC with other directors, they're going through, they're asking similar questions. Washington State, I believe, is offering some kind of certification. I don't know the details of that, but we're looking at that. So I think this is something we need to just really dig into in some capacity. If I may, I check with Jen if it's okay. I know Glenn is with us, and has some input on this and shared some things in the chat. So, Glenn, would you be willing to give us your 2 cents on this topic?
Sure, Pete. So we've looked at this for a while, and it's my understanding that there are only 2 other allied health professionals, if you want to say, chiropractors and physical therapists, in their respective practice acts. There is allowance that meets up with what's in the board OVMEB's Practice Act. I've heard from acupuncturists in the past saying, oh, yeah, we could do that, but I've not seen anything in the Oregon Medical Board that allows it. And what also is a bit puzzling is there's nothing in the chiropractors or the physical therapist licensing board, their practice act, that says that individual who treats animals, and it has to be upon referral by a veterinarian for a specific condition, that matches with OVMB's statute. But there's nothing saying they have to share records of what was treated, how that animal was treated. And that just, for us, that doesn't make sense. Maybe it's there, we haven't seen it, but if a veterinarian is going to make a referral, we would assume that that other allied health professional is going to share information and records back to the veterinarian, because the attending veterinarian needs to know that information. And we don't see that that exists.
Thank you, Brian.
Dr. Wallace, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I dug into this section a little bit when I was reviewing for that Senate bill that Glenn talked about earlier, because regarding the lay preg checking and dentistry, because this is kind of where they wanted to input those statutes. And I feel like the language of allied health professional or practitioner is more of a human medicine terminology. And when I just Googled what that spectrum is, the majority of allied health professionals or practitioners do not align. Like we're talking about occupational therapists and psychologists and things, speech language pathologists, dietitians, things that do not even apply to veterinary medicine. And my thoughts were we need to take a deeper look at this and possibly narrow it down, because this would allow podiatrists to work on animals, yet it is completely different mechanics. So when I dug into it, I was like, wow, this needs tightened up, because it doesn't truly apply and maybe allows for too much leeway. And I also want to reiterate Glenn's comment about charting and shared medical records.
Dr. Rinaldi?
Am I right in thinking, and I guess Dr. Wallace may have mentioned this, that we don't really have a definition for what constitutes an allied health profession? I mean, if it gets broadened out to like dentistry, could it be broadened out to like, could a medical doctor, like a physician, does that qualify?
Well, so the
Seem like we're reaching.
question is going to be, because it's a statute, which is what did the legislature intend?
Mhm.
That's going to be the most basic question.
It kind of seems like we might not really be able to answer this question without legal advice.
Clarifying.
Would it be helpful though to maybe start before legal advice, looking at what, like, could Director Burns look at what the language is in kind of each of the health allied boards and see where it is like defined as human, defined or not defined, maybe just 3 columns, like includes human, doesn't include humans, forbids human or forbids animal handling because it's only restricted to only humans, and kind of go from there. And so we have a better perspective of the enormity that we're dealing with before we ask for the legal advice.
Sounds great.
And we were scrambling to get this on the agenda for this meeting. So I reached out to rules coordinators, some of whom have responded, but I don't have a full picture for the board yet. So I'm absolutely happy to bring that back at the next meeting. And then I think you reached out to agency as well, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And we've just been getting increased calls on these. So we thought we'd like to get something before the board, structure a game plan, get more research, but continue to have this conversation.
In the meantime, do we need to retract this information because we're seeing that it's ambiguity?
We've taken this off.
Okay.
For now.
Does that need to be formally voted on to pull or no? Okay.
Yeah.
Any board members have any comments or other suggestions or additional information on that? Joanna, is there any other guidance that we should be considering right now? I mean, I know legal advice would
I mean, I think the essential question is going to be what the legislature intended. Like, did the legislature intend that even if the scope of practice is for humans, that they could do this for animals, right? That's really the big question. here.
Right, because they could have had the bill go back and amend all of the statute, but they didn't. So,
Right,
yeah.
but I think
Yeah.
that's also the essential question.
Yeah.
Just because the scope of practice is limited to humans,
Right.
did that mean that the legislature didn't intend for them also to be able to do this as an exemption to veterinary care? That's like, that is the essential question here.
Is that something that will be able to capture through conversations with other boards, or is there a way to, I don't know.
I would be shocked if other, I mean, you never know, somebody might have a long memory of when this was proposed to the legislature. So, but I think what you really want to do is do some digging on this legislation, when it was proposed. What, is there any legislative history on what was told to the legislature about?
I know we want to be careful with our budget this year, but is that something that we should just put on the docket for after the fiscal year turn, or we'll wait until the June meeting?
I can check. I mean, I think we're good with fiscal. All our projections show that we're fine.
I guess I meant for legal, like.
To utilize the advice we have, all the projections, so we should be good to either start that, and if it's a little too close, we can continue the research and start to lead advice or in July. So you,
I mean, the truth is probably can't get to it till then anyway, so that might actually, yeah.
you know, there's stuff to do.
Do we need for legal advice too, or does the board feel differently on that?
At some point, I think we're gonna need legal advice. We could ask for it now and ask you for it whenever we need. Request.
We need to vote on that, sorry, no, okay, I didn't know with the financial, if we needed to vote on that or not.
No, I think we're good. We'll implement the official request when after I check with financial. I think we're good. I know. Just a matter of when. In the meantime, we'll continue to do the research as you suggested, looking at other boards, digging into that ORS. Bring some more helpful information to get this solved. We've got to find a way to answer these questions that we're getting. Because we're just dancing around in a gray area. And it seems to me like different agencies are kind of pointing at each other and saying, we'll talk to them. They're saying, we'll talk to that board, and people are getting frustrated. So we want to be responsive to them.
We won't make our 3 to 5 day window. We can get answer for you, right?
No. About a timely reason why we can't answer the question. At least there's one that they're being heard.
Great, thank you. So discussion and action items number 10, or 9, sorry, right, 9. And this is continuing education, antibiotic use and pain management. And this is with me. And now I feel a little underprepared for this one, but I think I remember what I was going to bring up. So I actually attended a couple CEs recently, and I know we've had some people present to the board about the antibiotic use and the pain management. So I had actually just attended a lecture that was a really great antibiotic one that wasn't formalized with the board as being approved as an antibiotic use lecture. So I just touched base with Pete and said, do we have a process? Where's our process at? And it might be just time to kind of look at the CE rules and see, are there any other topics that we need to discuss as being added to the CE rules? And also, how do people get these these CE programs approved through the board, and what is our process? So I didn't know if we wanted to discuss a little bit about maybe formulating a committee that approves the CE. I know we have delegated authority to the staff, but sometimes the curriculum that they might be approving, they might have questions about. So who are the board members that they can go to ask questions? Like, is this a good CE, or is this a CE that fits the curriculum or the requirement? Did I capture all that?
I think so. It's been kind of loose in terms of how we approve CE, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but did you have anything else you wanted to say about it, about the process?
Yeah, I mean, currently we handing it off to Dr. DeBest. So when I receive those requests, I send them, I forward them on.
That's
Staff
been-
currently is not. And when you say requests, are they requests for people who want to have CE approved, like I'm lecturing and I call you and I say, hey, I'm giving you this CE. Can you approve it? Or is it the CE that people are turning in when they're renewing? Or you have both questions, two questions there?
Yeah, both. I often will refer those to Emilio because it, like you're saying, I don't feel like I have the knowledge base to even know what I'm looking at. If you guys want.
And if the process has been in place for a long time, I think it'd just be better to formalize something with, existing board members. Again, at APSD, looking at other jurisdictions, they form smaller committees a lot more often than we do to handle things like this. It's something we might want to engage in. It's a little tricky, defer to Joanna about how you do that without, what could be done in terms of like a quick review of CE individually by a group of, 2 or 3 different board members could then
Well,
can be responsible.
that's have to be public.
Dancing with
Yeah.
public meeting rules. So
That's some,
time commitment for folks, there's challenges to it, but somehow I think it'd be good to formalize this process.
I think there's a few questions on the table, like how do we go about approving CE is approved for the person who's lecturing? How do we approve CE for the licensee who's submitting a lecture that we may not have a specific, like it was done by an association or a AABSB that is kind of lined out. It's not race approved. That's outlined in our rules. And then the criteria for the specific ones, so like antibiotic and pain management, what ones do fall into those categories, so that people have access to those specific lectures, and how do those get approved through the board in a timely manner so that the licensee knows that they're taking one that's approved by the board to meet those requirements. So, is that something, Joanna, that we could have like different board members review, like have not like a committee per se, but even just like 2 or 3 people that could approve them individually?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it would be like the people getting together is what would make it
Yeah.
a public piece. But if you have like, let's say, and I think it's what Emilio's basically been doing. Is Emilio's been on tap as Brooks expert, right? Like, hey, does this look right, Emilio? And then, but you could have board members feel like, yeah, I can be on tap to look at CEs and let me know if there's any concern. You just, if they're getting together and talking, then we gotta bring up public meetings.
Is that something that we could just have like a list of which board members are interested in being those people that go to, and then they report directly to Pete or report directly to the app?
Are there like subject matter experts? I mean, that might be able to, the CE related.
I wonder if it might be helpful to have, and you'll be able to speak to this, but to have like almost an algorithm where, so I like the idea we're talking about here, but having something those board members can step through that maybe the board puts together as a group. That is like, step number 1, the length of time, right? We established basic, right? It has to be at least this much time. The person who's giving the CE has to have these types of credentials, you know what I mean? So there's just like a basic framework for whoever on the board reviewing those things, sort of arbitrary, or we're not trying to like decide if the person has more expertise in that area, so that it could be transferable to like theoretically anybody on the board who wanted to be part of that could just step through some of those steps.
So that would be a good idea. I think that you want to do it for people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Here's the criteria. I'm like looking at your CE rule right now.
At the dental board, we did have or approved curricula that were not in rule. But the board had looked look at the curriculum and say that CE courses meet these requirements, and then that was like distributed to the course organizer when they would inquire.
The hard part is what if we tell somebody it's not good enough, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, because essentially you're affecting them financially.
The other thing is,
So this is
just the specifics of whether it's like pain or antibiotic, like, does this meet what we would require for pain and antibiotic use? Like, I know for the one that I attended recently, it felt to me, hey, this would be a great lecture for antibiotic use, but I I couldn't speak on behalf of the board and it was accessible training, I felt like, oh, that would be great if it was in practice and people could have access to it. But I didn't know if it met all the criteria, like what you're suggesting in the algorithm. Dr. Rinaldi. Oh, sorry, Dr. Hamilton,
Oh,
I'll go to
sorry.
you next.
When you get requests of these sort, are people just sending in like a course title and saying, hey, I did an hour of this and I think this is appropriate, or are they sending you actual like details on that course?
Depends on how involved they get. So like the most recent one, and he actually came to public comment, I can't remember his name. But he works with cattle and he said, hey, like this is relevant to my field, like you guys are talking about. That depends on Emilio. If like he typically asks for more information. I feel like trying to remember how many I got this year questions in regards to this, but definitely when there's like an approval of CE, like a presentation, they require like PowerPoints. I mean, it's more involved with like, we don't really have to get that, you know, or case by case.
Dr. Hamilton, did you have your hand up?
I don't.
All right, well, so if I'm a vet and I just went to some conference or saw some lecture that I found interesting, I could apply to the board and say, hey, you need to look at this. And I want CE credit for it. Is that how I understand this?
Well, in this. Right, is that what you're.
So in our rule, there's several things that are already approved. Like if it's with like a school, with an accredited university, an association, it's race approved, so it's been nationally approved.
Right.
It's been there's certain criteria, and that's pretty black and white. Like you either are a school or you're not, you're an association or you're not. Then we have a rule that says you have to take an hour of pain management and an hour of antibiotics. If those are given by somebody, say with an association, how do we approve that that's the antibiotic lecture or that's the, it's approved as the CE, but how is it approved for the hour of pain or the hour of antibiotic usage? Does that make sense? Or is it on the honor system, or like what Brooke was saying, somebody came across one and it was specific to their practice and said, can we use this one? How does that get approved?
Right.
And the way your rule works, it's not like they're like, I can see why people want pre-approval. Because they're like, hey, we want to tell people if you take this CE, it's going to count for them. But in reality, what would happen is licensee would have to say, here's my X amount of CE. And under your rule, the board would have to be like, oh, that doesn't actually fit our rules. That's a CE and basket. For whatever reason, people discuss this stuff. Basket weaving is always the example of when it doesn't fit. Like you gave us an hour in basket weaving, like that doesn't fit the CE rule. So that's not going to count. And then if the person's below the CE, now they got a problem, right? So yeah, the way your board is written, it's really about the categories are, I'm assuming how this would come up. Somebody says, hey, I took this 1 hour in judicious antibiotic use. And then when somebody looks at the course, they're like, that was actually about, I don't know, what would be a silly example? That was actually not about antibiotics. That was about natural remedies by giving your animals smoothies, right? Like I'm just thinking that, like, I'm trying to think, because it'd have to be kind of an extreme example for the board to say that that doesn't work.
And I think at least the discussion I had when I took this lecture the other night, I said, oh, did you contact the board? Did you have, did you try to get this approved for antibiotic use? And this is another veterinarian, and I won't put her on the spot because, of confidentiality, but she said, yeah, I don't know if it would be approved or not. And then she said, I just take the USDA one every year, every year that I need it. So we're almost recycling the same courses that we're taking as veterinarians because we know that one's approved. So I'm like, I have an hour, so I'm just going to take this one real quick to make that requirement. But it's not actually getting us further down the road as practitioners to actually take new courses or be more advanced in our system. And I know PBMA, they often have CE requirements. Christina, do you have any? Yeah, feel free.
So like try really hard to build in something each year in
conference or other meetings that would suit that. I will say, we are very lucky that we get to approve our own CE and we're very conscious of that privilege. There have been times where I've been told that something is going to be something, the lecture description, and I will say Norma will do this often. And it ends up being a bait and switch of a sales pitch. It doesn't happen often, but I will revoke that CE. It will get either downgraded to, like a half a credit because really only 30 minutes of the hour and a half was legitimate CE, the rest was a sales pitch. Yeah, it has been a little tricky. The antibiotic one is especially challenging for us to offer because it's derm, it's a more derm usually for small animals. But we're very mindful of what we have coming in and what we designate as filling that without your input. So I would love for like specifications. So we make sure we think we're doing a good job at maintaining that high quality CE that wouldn't be questioned, and it's yet to be questioned. So thank you. But yeah, I mean, it's tricky because we want to make sure that we maintain the privilege we have because we are a CE machine and offer probably almost 100 credits a year at this point. So.
And just to specify, because you're an association.
Because we're an association.
Well, but you're kind of making your own.
Yeah, we have our own associated CE director, our board reviews everything. We're very because we have such have CE done for us or have people present to us. But we do use it a little bit intentionally as a promotional that fulfills those two requirements when we examine these report. And yes, we do see higher numbers, but it does help because we're getting the same recycle to the people. We report a lot of stuff, which is really nice. People are able to access our reportings even if they can't go on site, and it prevents them from doing the same every year. The USDA ones, Emilio, love him. He updates those ones. Our small animal practitioners are sure we'll go learn about some cattle stuff just to check that box, but it's not ideal. If we want to actually have them get the benefit value of the intention of it, there has to be a little bit more parameters around it so people know they can, get approval and build in really high quality, valuable.
And I guess my question too that are posing, is there other topics besides antibiotic and pain management? Or does pain management expand into like opioid abuse, since that's something that we're seeing more of? Like, are these topics, should they be expanded now because we're seeing recycling of CE and or topics that are more important?
Washington State has a lot. They have like 6 separate categories, and well-being is one of them. So that's something that's been brought up. I know Dr. DeVas's interested in adding that at some point. And then with all the technology and stuff, telehealth and technology and vet medicine is something we're seeing being added as well.
I'm going to throw this out here. Please don't hate me for this. Is there any way that we might be able to survey our licensees about what CE they feel is important, or and we could throw out some categories or something that might be helpful to survey? Because I think it's hard. I know for me personally, it's hard for me to speculate what would be important to a cattle veterinarian or, and I know we have some great large animal vets on here. But it's also hard, I think, to decide that. Would it be appropriate or helpful for each board member to maybe submit 3 topics to that survey? Would that be helpful?
First of all, it's not inappropriate to ask. I think it's a great idea. I really welcome it. We've got, you can contact all of our licensees, and they probably would appreciate being contacted for more than just compliance or more rules, or more, but actually getting their input. So I think that's a terrific suggestion. Glad to do it. We're glad to take suggestions from board members if they have specific questions or things. I wonder if we also might solicit input from, as you experienced, quality and useful CE that they've recently attended, that they might offer to us as a suggestion, just to kind of start together clearinghouses. Programs.
Okay.
I love it, and I think it's going to help us serve our licensing better.
Anything other? Peter and Pat?
I was just gonna say, I wonder if it would be helpful, depending on where we end up with these like specific sort of subsets of CE. If it might be helpful to have in board protocols to review those, like in January, at the January meeting, so that we're staying up to date. And replacing, not necessarily changing the verbiage in rule, but like finding another judicious use of antibiotics, CE, so that we're changing that out and people aren't just going back and doing the same exact one that they've done before, but it's kind of, it's still done in the process.
Along those same lines, I actually had a question. When we approve something, does it have a time frame on it? Like, so if we approve, say, Dr. Borzak is going to give this lecture about this newfangled method of something, something or other, and smoothie use, and it's approved by the board, and, but how long is that? Like, is it biannually reviewed, or is it's only approved for that one lecture for that 1 year? That was always because things change and then other things don't change, and our methods that are, 5 years down the road, still the technique of choice.
Like pain management looks different now than it did look, than it looked 5 years ago. So I just think, like having enough, I think it's a good point.
Dr. Nolly.
I was Googling through RACE. They have a 12-page document, has all of their standards of what they consider to be an acceptable level of, it doesn't go into a tremendous amount of detail, but they have a 2-year approval cycle. So it's good for that 2-year period to resubmit.
Glenn shares in the comments that LVMEB accepts pain management and or anesthesia. Check.
So I was gonna say, the board might just be interested, you have says that a maximum of 6 hours for veterinarians or 3 hours for CVPs, workshops or seminars on non-scientific subjects relating to the practice of veterinary medicine, such as communication skills, practice management, stress management, chemical impairment. It's kind of interesting.
But it's not a requirement that they have to do that. It's just
It's a big question, but yeah, but you allow it.
Yeah. We'll bring back some more discussion at the next meeting. Does that?
That sounds appropriate.
Like a-
Thank you.
Moving on, 10, which is, I think, our biggest topic of the day. Do we want to jump to 10, 11 and just do that real quick, take a break and then BCPR? Because I feel like that's going to take several
Okay, Brooke?
rounds of
Up to
discussion.
applicants.
I think 10, 11 is just introducing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll jump to 10, 11 with licensing administrator Brooke Walker to introduce that topic, and then jump back to 10.
They'll be reviewed in the second session.
Great, thank you. Should we take a quick?
Sure. This is.
It's gonna be about lunch here between 11:30 and 12.
Lunches are
Okay.
supposed to be arriving any moment.
So do you want to just introduce what we're going to talk about after lunch, and then people can percolate on it for lunch, and then into it right after?
We're gonna get into an actual work session on VCPR. We've got the VCPR packets in front of you. I think we'll just work with your seatmates to kind of look through that, come up with some ideas, some suggestions. We're actually gonna take some input from any public attendees today. They can write some ideas down that they feel might be important for the board to hear. We're hoping to cobble together and progress this VCPR project. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, is Glenn on,
Let's hear.
will Glenn be available for that?
Glenn, are you gonna be available with us for a while?
Yeah, I'll be hanging through the discussion.
We pick up after lunch, so.
Yeah.
An hour or so.
Okay, just let me know what time.
And then our public members, are you sticking around after lunch or no? Nope. No worries. Okay.
Do you want to start lunch? I'm just gonna see a picture from.
Yeah, and then meet back. I mean, we're almost to noon, so do you want to meet back at 1 for the discussion, the VCPR action item 1010? VCPR work group discussion.
Good.
Ingrid, do you mind just posting that in the chat so that if anybody's still on, yes, that we're going to meet back at 1? Absolutely. Yeah, Brian.
What's that?
Do you need juice yet?
Yeah. It's still at
Battery.
that's 100%.
Dr. Hamilton, do you
100%.
need anything for iPad, or is your iPad staying charged?
I haven't, oh,
I have a very long cord and I know we don't have as many.
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
The kids' school is called Stinger. I'm in Portland.
Right now somehow. It's like 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lightsaber. I didn't. So there's separate filings. Yes. So I will send to birth about the iPad now, or I can, it went to post for making a long later. I just remember putting it for materials. I forgot it. So it's not on the agenda, or it's. It's like full status sheet. It's absolutely. It's.
Yeah. Like I want to be.
The work requirements required. And I think that was the only two changes. And then both those filings. Were, one was filed.
Sorry.
like,
I wish that.
other one.
Sorry. You're welcome.
Yeah, so I will.
Okay. Just, I wish I wish but I.
Yeah, so I will send that out. Yeah. I mean, that's, I just tried to. But,
Great work.
okay, so let me email that to Brooke.
Yeah.
Wait, you're gonna want to make a couple of things. One is to make sure you're gonna sell that.
I'm gonna proof on. Make sure.